White America, here's 20 alternative educational theories, educational ways to school America that you don't know about. Reggio Emilia, freedom schools, black schools, Montessori, flipped classrooms, Summerhill, Sugata Mitra, Sudbury model schools, St. John's College, Vocational, Waldorf, Academy, radical neighbor-to-neighbor schooling, Buddhist education, homeschooling, Russian education, Switzerland model, Norway model, the Harkness oval table, and learn by play. You can learn when you're playing, especially educational games. Harkness oval table, we sit around a table and we discuss, talk about issues and respect each other. Norway model, there's no homework. Switzerland, it's internships with businesses. Russian education, there's public garages full of tools for anybody to come in and make themselves a radio. Buddhist education, you temper your wants and you breathe to be happy. Neighbor. You think it's too much to say totalitarian? That public education is totalitarian?
No. What's up, dude?
Hey, man, how you been?
Say what?
How you been? How are you? That's a common American colloquialism that people say when they first say hi. How are you?
All right. It's been a rough week, but I'm doing okay today.
Oh, my God. I wanted to lie, not the truth. Fuck. Okay. Emilia teaches the 100 languages. Everybody's got 100 languages, so it's just a matter of being able to express yourself in the correct way. Freedom schools is when they taught black folks in the South about civics and registering to vote and liberation. You know, this is what schools are all about. Montessori schools is follow the child. They have stations. It's primary school. They have stations, and they essentially let the kid choose which stations they want to go to. The flipped classroom model is you do your homework and you study at home, and then when you get into class, you can do activities. That's such a million times better than the Prussian, industrial, fascist, totalitarian public schools we got right now. Summerhill is democratic schools. I put Sudbury model too because having two democratic schools that actually value democracy, value the person's freedom instead of smashing their humanity and oppressing the shit out of them, they actually empower them so they can be all the he learned that computers are such powerful tools that education is self-emergent and self-organizing. All you need is kids who respect each other. They have a computer between each other, and they talk about it, and then they try to figure out what the hell this thing is all about. It's get rid of the teachers. So get rid of the teachers. That's Sugata Mitra. St. John's College, instead of teachers, you have mentors, and instead of written tests, you have oral tests to see if the knowledge actually got into your brain or not. Vocational school, this is Booker T. Washington. This is learn how to weld, learn how to fix cars, learn how to build houses. Those skills you'll get paid for, and then in a way they'll become dependent upon you. So it's an industrial, vocational model. The Waldorf is sort of freedom, but they got a lot of very particulars. Cons Academy, that's on the internet. At any time, at any point, we can just educate ourselves. There's Cons Academy. Neighbor-to-neighbor schooling. If we truly actually gave a shit about education, education's a lifelong process. We never stop learning. We can learn from each other. But we'd have to respect each other, and we'd have to learn how to listen and how to get along. That's something the fascist, Prussian, industrial, totalitarian public education that we have now does not do. It's the bell curve. Some get A's. Other people, get lost in the shuffle. So it's competitive. Look at your fellow peers as competitors for their grades. You only need to make the dictator happy. You don't have to make anybody else in that classroom happy. Just the dictator. Everybody else is irrelevant. So like the slaves, they'll be more likely to fight amongst each other than to actually take on the main oppressor. So that's why I love the democratic schools. Sudbury model schools should be everywhere. It's actually cheaper. Sudbury model schools are cheaper than public education. It's only like $6,000 per a lot of fun. I'm going to come back and then, expand on each one of those ideas. But that's 20 different alternative educations, 20 different. Basically, there's an overall philosophy. Is it all totalitarian and fascist and Prussian and industrial? I would say not all of them. I'm sure there's some schools that actually have principals who give a shit if their students are empowered and if they do well in life later on. But I would say for the vast majority, this is my experience. This is a lot of other Americans' experiences too. There's fascist dictator. Students, shut up, sit down. There's a bell system. Go to the next class. Go there. Have this for lunch. Then that's it, right? So you might be able to choose your classes, but you can't talk to your fellow students. You can't build relationships. You can't work on your networking. Shut the fuck up. There's 30 of you. The dictator knows everything. You have to regurgitate whatever the dictator tells you to regurgitate. Don't think for yourself. You're nobody. Smash your humanity, and that's it. You've ever been a victim of oppression, but sometimes you want somebody to like you, but then they just start telling you what to do like you ain't shit. It's almost like, what, because I was nice to you, you think that I want to be controlled and manipulated? No, I don't. I very much love my freedom, so sorry that you mistook my niceness for weakness. And, I don't understand, but you could be stuck in a relationship like that. You could be stuck, and I could, think of women being stuck with their tyrannical oppressors who just, can't open up, can't talk about their feelings, and so they only know how to control and, anyways. The oppressed, there's hope with the oppressed. The oppressor doesn't give a crap about the humanity or the soul of those that they oppress. They destroy their humanity. So what do? The oppressed can stand up and then we all learn something, or we could just get rid of the oppressors and start talking equality, justice, fairness amongst ourselves, which is what I've been doing the whole time. Quote from page 74, Paulo Freire, Pedagogy of the Oppressed. The truth is, however, that the oppressed are not marginals, or not people living outside of society. They have always been inside the structure which made them beings for others. The solution is not to integrate them into the structure of oppression, but to transform that structure so that they can become beings for themselves. Not beings for others, beings for themselves. Oppression is a mind killer. Oppression, fear tactics, 100% compliance. That's all the Prussian, industrial, totalitarian, fascist public education in America. That's all they teach is oppression. Shut the hell up. Dictator tells you what to fucking do, you fucking do it. They don't teach education. They don't teach you to stand up. Prussian, because it's nationalism. All the MS, the PhDs, the universities, kindergarten come from Prussia before Germany. Schools were designed by Horace Mann and by Sears and Harper of the University of Chicago and by Thorndike of Columbia Teachers College and by some other men to be instruments for the scientific management of a mass population. Schools are intended to produce, through the application of formulaic human beings whose behavior can be predicted and controlled. To a very great extent, schools succeed in doing this, but in a national order increasingly disintegrated, in a national order in which the only successful, quote-unquote, people are independent, self-reliant, confident, and individualistic. Because community life, which protects the dependent and the weak, is dead, and only networks remain. The products of schooling are, as I've said, irrelevant. Well-schooled people are irrelevant. They can sell film and razor blades, push paper and talk on telephones, or sit mindlessly before a flickering computer terminal, but as human beings, they are useless. Useless to others and useless to themselves. Said that blind obedience to authority is the reason why we have war, genocide, and slavery, the worst atrocities in all of history. Blind obedience to authority, which is what the Prussian industrial fascist totalitarian public education teaches. So the Taliban, they killed 23 more Afghanistans. There was another. So the Taliban controls 70% of Afghanistan. We've been in there for 17 years, escalation after escalation, no end in sight, can't get that Helmand province whatsoever. So, this is something that apparently liberals can sit on their hands about, because under Obama, under Hillary, they were warmongering like crazy, drone striking, all these different shadow wars. And there's only been 10 years our nation has not been at war. Well, what the hell is going on here? Are we not individualistic? Are we not Americans? When is Americans going to be Americans again? We're strong and we're individualistic. We might have, tough conversations, but we can get through this if we mean to get through it. Cooper was an intern at the CIA. You didn't know that. You also didn't know the Seventh Amendment to the Constitution is that any criminal accusations that's over $20, you can request yourselves a jury trial. That's the Seventh Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. Did you know that? Now you do. But I bet you if you didn't, you went to public education. The 19th Amendment is the right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the U.S. or by any state on account of sex. So women's right to vote is the 19th Amendment. The 22nd Amendment of the United States Constitution limits the number of times one can be elected to the president of the office of President of the United States. So 65% of Americans don't vote. It makes me very skeptical if they know the three branches, the rule of law. Do they know how to get along? Do they know that the three branches is arbitrary? It's to prevent tyranny, but it's arbitrary for a reason. Do they know? Do we know that? Were those experiences, did you have civics when you went to private or public school?
I had principles of democracy when I was in high school.
Nice, principles of democracy. So, what did you learn about
that was only senior year.
What did you learn about in that? Did you learn about the rule of law?
Man, that's 20-some years ago.
And we forget everything in school, right? So really, they're not educating anybody.
Right. I mean, it wasn't very good. Plus, I was a shitty student in high school, so
this one meme, and I said that there's 900 military bases, 150 countries who got special ops in, 30 shadow wars in Africa, 30 Vietnams were now starting. So thank God for Jan Fear. 12 countries were publicly bombing. All of a sudden, Niger's on the list, right? Well, because that one guy got killed. So now we're going to admit, oh, yeah, we invaded Niger, everybody. Did y'all know that? We're invading Niger and Gabon, Nigeria, all over the place. So there was a person that said, how do you know that's true? What do you mean? Like the person was trying to make fun of me because I know essentially the geopolitical situation that the United States is in. How come she didn't know that? Did she know that there's 900 military bases that we know of? There's probably more. There's torture sites in Kosovo. So do you know that? Do you know that you're an empire? Because if you don't know that you're an empire, if you don't understand who you actually are, I don't see how you can make decisions for the entire nation when you don't. Majority of Americans do not vote. 15% is all Kentucky needs for an election to be legitimate. Last year in Pueblo, 65% of the Puebloan people did not vote, even though you could register online. It's easy as hell to register online at the drive, and then you could also, they mail the ballot out to you. You have to fight to not vote. 65% fought real hard in Pueblo. They said, fuck the democracy, fuck this government, because they're educated by public education. This stuff doesn't matter, right? They don't care. They weren't taught to be independent. And then only one person ran for water board and civil service commission for the last 20 years. 75% retention rate with judges, even though they're not even running against other people. Usually when alternative education is being talked about, it's for the troublemaker kids, the juvenile delinquents. It's the school of last resorts. Or you think of fringe groups, right? Like your religious groups. But that's bullshit. If you don't have an overall philosophy, overarching philosophy of American public education. I don't think there is one. And if you don't state what your purpose is, you're going to be a tyrant. Everybody would be a tyrant if you let them. Everybody would be a tyrant if you let them. So that's all it is. It's hierarchical. It's very, top down, right? There's the superintendent, then there's the principal, then there's the teachers, and guess who's on the very bottom? On the very bottom. Is that what we're trying to teach? No, the only way you should walk into a school is if you're getting paid. The janitor has more freedom and to do what they want, and they got power. That's another thing. They have power. So you want to rip the power away from the kids and then what? Wonder why they aren't acting the way that they should, acting a fool? So the 20 alternative educations is, that's 20 other ways we could think about it. 20 other ways you could say, well, we're kind of a Reggio Emilia school. And if you don't have any of those, an overarching philosophy, You're a fascist, totalitarian, shut up, sit down, you know, the teacher is... Ever seen Maslow's hierarchy of needs? This is key. This is key. This triangle is embedded in my head. This is what human beings need in order to live. This triangle came out in 1943. Abraham Maslow, the super genius, he put this thing out. So at the very bottom, we all need food, water, breathing, shelter, clothing, and sleep. Those are physiological needs. At the very least, every single one of us needs sleep, clothing, shelter, water, food, breathing, oxygen. The next rank is safety and security, health, employment, property, family, social stability, safety, security. Without security, you can't have freedom, right? Love and belonging, friendship, family, intimacy, sense of connection. Love and look at this and this. You're telling me that, okay, so food, water, shelter, safety, love and belonging, self-esteem, and then self-actualization. So from love and belonging, you get confident, and then to this triangle. This is another triangle that, you know, basically it's embedded in my mindset. This is how things are. This absolutely is true. It's true with me. How much information do you retain when you're being lectured at? 5%. When you read the material, you retain 10%. When you see an audio-visual demonstration, you retain 20%. When you see, well, demonstration, you know, I guess different than audio-visual, 30%. So if somebody does it in front of you, discussion group, you retain 50%. If you have experience, you retain 75%. And if you teach others, you retain 90%. So the only people that's learning in a classroom is the teacher. They're the only ones teaching. They retain 90%, and the students are only retaining 5%. If we want the students to actually learn more, we'll get them to start teaching. We'll actually have them get experiences, and we'll get discussion groups because they'll retain so much more information. Instead, shut up, sit and get. That's all day.
Part of your experience, I think, is that because you were studying education,
Yeah.
that I think it was probably more dictatorial because, I mean, the purpose of, the main purpose, in my opinion, of most education prior to college in the United States is to inculcate obedience and
Compliance.
you know, basically just to turn us into automatons.
And in our sleep, pain which cannot forget falls drop by drop upon the heart, until in our own despair against our will comes wisdom through the awful grace of God. That's RFK quoting Aeschylus when Martin Luther King was assassinated. So schools are totalitarian, like prison in anyway. People are saying it's going to be like prisons. Do you remember public education? Right? Line up, do this, shut up. So truancy means that the kid goes to jail or the parents do. Huckleberry Finn is a quintessential American novel, and yet we're throwing Huckleberry Finns in jail. Read Huckleberry Finn. You ain't going to civilize me, right? That's the American spirit. Big Brother is raising everybody's kids. Stand up for that pledge, obey authority, distrust your peers, don't have solidarity, compete, fight like Mandingo warriors for the teacher's delight. So did anybody ever think how the Seventh Amendment is government is the government which governs least, or even better yet, one which doesn't govern at all? Good education system would have us actually discussing and talking about these things. Schools are in the center of communities. What an excellent opportunity for us as adults to get together, right? It's not just for the children, it's for adults too. If we don't, you know, not maybe for the elementary, but there should be gymnasiums or something for the adults. But our prisons and our schools are actively hurting people. People are talking about not having a perimeter as if what? Schools aren't totalitarian and totally controlling? The security guard will take that kid out of class if there's an issue. There's one teacher that's assigned to stop the fights. So the teacher, right, they're allowed to have force. They have a greater force between the students. They got state power too. If a teacher robs a student of their $300 cell phone and then that, student grabs that phone back, who is the cop going to believe? Which side do you think the cop Reggio Emilia approach has lots of things, but essentially it's this Louis Magazzi, the guy had developed it around the villages of Reggio Emilia, Italy. So that's where it gets its name from. It's a constructivist approach. It's student-centered. The environment controls the behavior that's focused on preschool and primary ages. Constructivist that uses self-directed experimental learning in relationship-driven environments. Look at that. God, that is such a very precise overall arching philosophy. The program is based on the principles of respect, responsibility, and community through exploration and discovery through a self-guided curriculum. At its core is the assumption that children form their own personality during early years of development, are endowed with 100 languages which they can express their ideas. 100 languages. Genius, right? Paint, sculpt, drama, interpretive dance, shout loudly, whisper, YouTube, sing, write a you could do Wikipedia, you could do strengths of feet, right? I could throw farther than you. I'm strong. Look how far I can throw. So that's, amazing. That's absolutely correct. That's absolutely right. And it's similar to Montessori. Freedom School. This is civics, voter registration, educating local folks to teach them about the local politicians, how the government works. Freedom School. I like Freedom School a lot. It never actually got started, but it was during the 1960s, or it didn't, it got started, but it didn't spread. More than 40 freedom schools were set up in black communities throughout Mississippi during the summer of 1964, and they were trying to end the political displacement of black folks by encouraging students to become active citizens and socially involved within the community. Over 3,000 black students attended these schools in the summer of 1964. The students range in age from small children to the very elderly, with average age approximately 15 years old. Teachers were actually students in school and college at the time. Instructions to teachers included in the matter of classroom procedure. Questioning is the vital tool. It is meaningless to flood the student with information that he cannot understand. Questioning is the path to enlightenment. The value of the freedom schools will derive mainly from what the teachers are able to elicit from the students in terms of comprehension and expression of their experiences. Without a discussion, if there is no discussion, if there is no dialogue, then that structure needs to be demolished. Another problem with Prussian industrial, just a monologuist, just a monarchist, just an autocrat. Just one person has all the power, and maybe you might get a little, maybe you could say something if you're real nice at the very end, if you answer the question right. So the value of the freedom schools will derive mainly from what the teachers are able to elicit from the students in terms of comprehension and expression of their experiences. Part of the freedom school legacy can be seen in the dozens of schools that education actually started way back when, during Reconstruction. So when black schools were being established, this is right after the Civil War, right after black folks were slaves, the larger society was opposed to them. The only way that black folks were able to get any freedom in the South after Civil War was because of the military occupation, because of the Union, because the Yankees actually said, basically escorted black folks by soldiers and said, if you're going to do anything about it, you're going to get hurt. And so black schools, the teachers knew that they didn't have long to educate. The pressing issue, it was vital. To elevate the talented tenth, like W.E.B. Du Bois says, the larger society is opposed to them. So you got to find your leaders, you got to find the strong and the smart ones, and you got to make sure the parents know what kind of blessing that they actually have, because that's going to be the future leader of the community. So because it was so vital, because it was so important, they actually gave us. Montessori school, which is pretty popular. It's also a constructivist. It's also with primary school students. It's follow the child. The child will teach you what they want to learn. So they'll be curious in this or that. There's deep concentrations, practical applications, spontaneous autonomy. So essentially they believe by giving them freedom and you're setting up these stations, it's not complete freedom, but they set up the stations and say, well, which ones do you want to do? Eventually, by them always working as independent folks, independent who can do what they want, you'll have a spontaneous autonomy, and they'll get stronger, and they'll become self-motivated learners. Anne Frank was educated by Montessori schools. Also, Alexander Graham Bell, Thomas Edison, Jimmy Wales of Wikipedia, Larry Page of Google. Flipped classroom model. Like I said, do the activities at school, and you study the material at home, so it's an instructional strategy that blends learning. And it reverses the traditional learning. You don't do the activities outside. You do the activities in the class. You study outside. Then you... What about Prussian industrial? Okay, these I might have to tease this out a little bit. So the industrial model, so we're a bunch of, the uneducated peasants, and then you have all these factories. So they got us public education so we could be good worker bees. When we go to the factories, you got to listen to the bells, you got to listen to a boss, you got to do as you're told. And so I feel like part of it was this industrial model that they're trying to get us ready for the factory system. Is in the UK. It's founded by A.S. Neal. Summerhill is a democratic school where you could just spend weeks in the woods if you want to. Go to school and do absolutely nothing, read, talk to people, look at maps, do whatever you want. Eventually, when they get older, they want to go to college, so they'll actually complete, there's actually, real classes there, or the traditional classes. So when you figure out what you want, and you're like, you know what, I want to be an engineer, instead of being forced to learn, mathematics when you absolutely hate it, that's, if you don't pique the curiosity, you're actually damaging that student. So if you're a math teacher and you force the students to learn all your stupid bullshit when, let's say you're trying to teach them calculus, meanwhile they're getting their asses kicked at home, they're not going to retain anything that you said, and you just made them hate mathematics because you forced it upon them. Now, when the Summerhill method is when they're interested, when they're curious, they'll pick the classes. They'll say what they want to do. When they want to go to college, then they'll, get the things that they need to learn. Conflicts. And then another part is the Prussians. So go back to Germany in 1700s when Napoleon was, doing this thing. Napoleon conquered Germany like in a day or so, and they freaked the fuck out afterwards. And then once they were able to kick the French out, they're like, okay, we can't have that shit happen again. But they're kind of like, man, the French soldiers, they were basically fighting and dying because they wanted to, whereas the Germans were more mercenaries. And when the fight came, they were running over the hill. So we need to teach the youngsters to love Germany, love the fatherland, to love this culture, to love who we are. And so it was a Prussian thing. They're the ones that came up with the PhD system, the university system, the teacher training system. They're the ones that come up with kindergarten. That's a German thing, kinder, then element. So they come up with kind of everything. The education system we got today here in America is very, very similar to the Prussian system, back in the 1800s. So, I don't know, would you say that public education is Prussian or industrial? You think am I off base with those terms? Things about Summerhill, conflicts are resolved in school meetings. I saw this one movie where the kid stole $20 and then they said, why'd you do it? And then they said, I saw him do it. And then they essentially had a trial right there in front of everybody. Then anybody can make a proposal for a change of rules. This is democratic education. It's freedom. You get to maintain your dignity. You don't have to get your humanity is being smashed. There's anarchist schools. Sugata Mitra, the hole-in-the-wall experiment shows that education is self-organizing and self-emergent when you got a computer. This, essentially anarchist just means there's no authority figures. This is how most Americans educate themselves today, watching TV, sitting on the couch, doing whatever they do. And that's, you choose how you learn. If you don't believe education is a lifelong process, then you're probably, not learning from authority figures, right? You're learning on your own, or you're just having a fun time. I don't know what you're doing, but the anarchist schools.
Wait, the Prussian and industrial are separate or the same?
They're just different. So two different ideas. Do you see
more industrial?
Not really Americans.
But with some Prussian, because they definitely want to get you into the nationalistic thing as well as the factory.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to. That's why I put them. That's why I kind of say them together, Prussian industrial, because they make us say the pledge. It was like you were saying. They try to make us obedient. Were they just for obedience sake? I mean, the factories, I guess, is a direct thing, but I think being obedient to your government and to the police and civil servants and all those too, I think they wanted that. Of schools that these kids had actually learned, it's basically dropout kids. These are your Huckleberry Finns, so they didn't go to school. And what Sugata Mitra did, it was an experiment. He put a computer in a wall in New Delhi, India, so the capital of India, in a slum, in the hoods. And they put a computer in a wall, and that's it. And then they had surveillance on that computer, and then they walked away. and then eventually some dropout looked at the computer, started exploring, started playing with it. Other kids came by, and then within weeks they were learning emails, they were learning English language, enough Google, they had their own names for different things. So they started learning. They actually were learning. They were downloading, playing games, loading and saving files, drawing and painting pictures on the computer, basic computer navigation functions, click, drag, open, close, resize, minimize, and menu selection, surfing the internet, setting up email accounts, using social networking, troubleshooting, playing, streaming media. So this is essentially the teachers get out of the way, or the teachers are there to make sure the kids don't fight. Sugata Mitra, he calls it minimally invasive teaching. So you don't really intervene. If there's a bunch of kids and they're all, organized chaos, they're kind of doing what they want to do, but they're not fighting, they're not arguing, let them be, right? If they're having good conversations, they're building networks, they're building relationships, they're learning how to get along with each other, and they're, let them be. And I guarantee you, freedom's a weird word, because when you let people do what they want, eventually just lying around isn't good enough. You want to do something. So I feel like I'm one of the most productive people ever, and I love my freedom, but I work all the time. So Sudbury, so that's Sugata Mitra is, awesome. So Sudbury Model Schools is also democratic education like Summerhill. It's constructivist. It was founded in Massachusetts. They believe in discovery, exploration, pursuing curiosity. You just clock in for 8 hours. What I like about Sudbury Model Schools is the Daniel Greenberg. So I like Daniel Greenberg way better than A.S. Neal. Greenberg is super genius. He criticizes Waldorf education, which is Rudolf Steiner, but he essentially, and Montessori, any school that gives you a little bit of freedom but pretends that it's total freedom is manipulating you, and you're going to be manipulated for the rest of your life. So that's why you need total freedom. Do whatever you want. How they're going to learn Shakespeare? They'll stumble upon it just like all generations have done so. So he's democratic education. Every year at Sudbury Model Schools, there's a majority vote for the teachers and the principals. You want that teacher, you want that principal to stay, you get to vote. The students get to vote. So if they didn't like a teacher, some Nazi, some of the teachers, I went to teacher training and I volunteered in a lot of these classes, and there was this one lady, she hated life. She just was miserable, didn't like the students, didn't like anybody. She was hateful and mean, and she wasn't teaching it. She was insulting everybody. This is in elementary. She was damaging. So if you don't believe that it's a fascist structure in, totalitarian schools, the Prussian industrial schools, it's totally fascist. It's totally fascist. Back in the day, they would hit the kids, right? That's fascism. Do as I say or I'm going to hit you. That's fascism. Totalitarianism is when they get into your brain. Even your thoughts are under scrutiny. Shut up, do as you're told, only regurgitate what I tell you to regurgitate. In Sudbury Model Schools, even though it's like, what? Freedom? Democracy? What are you talking about? Everybody's just going to be running around with their heads cut off. They're all going to be fighting and whatever things you want. No, it works. And there's probably about 50 Sudbury Model Schools all over the place. But democratic systems tend to organize themselves in a structured system, which essentially points out that humans crave some kind of order, some kind of structure. But you give the power to the people. Isn't that a weird concept? Power to the people, America. Can you believe? Some of Sudbury Model Schools, St. John's College, they have mentors instead of teachers. They have oral tests. They study the great books, which actually I don't even really like the guy that come up with the great books. I have better great books list. He just went with the Greeks and the Romans. But essentially by picking, who's going to teach the kids, or this is a college, so who's going to teach the young adults anything and everything. The teachers is the classics. So you have Aristotle and Socrates and, Euclid. So they study sort of the primary sources of education, which they replace the books that they chose with better books, and the concept is brilliant. We'll stumble upon the great works, the intelligentsia, the Illuminati. Isn't that what that's about? To, just secular. So anyways. So now we're on vocation, Booker T's industrial education. So kind of like Russian education. They've been book that I had read, and it was Rudolf Eckstein. So essentially Rudolf Eckstein warned us against being Nazis, and he was like, the Nazis just obeyed their leader and they were just doing as they were told, and how education is its best prevention. How are we going to stop fascism? Because we're actually going to have a democratic education. In fact, that's John Dewey. He's as apple pie, or as American as apple pie. So John Dewey believed in democratic education. What happened to democratic? That's the Horace Mann too, right? Let's educate American. Let's teach these rowdy Americans how to live in a democratic society. The Switzerland model, you look at the businesses, forecast what jobs they're going to get, and then get the internships, the 16-year-olds into those businesses, and that's perfect. The businesses need, 12 engineers, so then you educate the people that want to be engineers, and you get 12 of them, and guess what? Now you got, the jobs, the local students, there's a connection. Switzerland model of education, we actually, job placement and internship. If they don't want to go to college, they could, go to vocation, or they could get the vocation in high school. Why do we wait for when they become 18 to let them make their own decisions? Before, in 17, they got to raise their hand just to go to the bathroom. Then 18 years old, they're allowed to sign contracts, go off to war, buy a gun and, whatever. So have children so they can enter into contracts, right? So they just, hey, can I go to the bathroom? You should go to the bathroom. You don't ask me. I don't want to sit there and prevent you from going to the bathroom. And those students that go ahead and piss in their pants. That's a great protest. Like, you're going to sit there and not let me go to the bathroom. Then now. But then I've heard a teacher well, now you're going to sit there with your pissy pants. No way, no way. See, that's another thing. Is students are trusting and loving, so they don't actually rebel against that. That child should leave that classroom, sit in her pissy. Rudolf Eichstein, who warned us about the Nazis and not being fascist, because he came out of fascist Nazi Germany, and essentially it was all love for the father and the fatherland, and it was, very, just look around. So the Switzerland model is the internship with businesses. Norway, they don't have any homework in Norway, so that's amazing, right? And I also think they have shorter class times. Lots of things going on in Norway. I just know that they don't have homework. Russian education. So in that same book with Rudolf Eichstein, 1940s or so, the Russians were sitting there saying American education in Russia, you could go down the street in any place. There's so many, men, and there's so many Soviets and working class collectives. There's garages and tools all over the place. You want to construct yourself a radio? Just go down the road. You'll have somebody that'll help you construct the radio. But in America, who helps construct us? Can the father help us? We have to get a private person to do it. We have to do it all of our own, if we even do it. So this oval table, essentially that's the whole concept. There's an oval table. Everybody comes in, have discussion, go home. So, we're all in this thing together. So I think that we have to learn to get along with each other, even if we don't agree with each other, and find those common connections, find that common ground so we can build upon it. So the Harkness table is also the discussion concept of the learning pyramid. And the way that you learn, I think this is Paulo Freire, but essentially you create a reality. I say this is what I believe. You say this is what you believe. And either we have to reconcile that as, they're both right, one's wrong, one's correct. So anyways, or you change your mind. And that's how learning happens. Either you reinforce what you thought before, or you learn something else, and now you have a different perspective. So Waldorf, he wanted to educate the children of the workers, and essentially this is how you get good education for the working masses. The pedagogy emphasized the role of a Waldorf school opened in 1919 in Stuttgart, Germany. At present, there's over 1,000 independent Waldorf schools, about 2,000 kindergartens, 646 centers for special education located in 75 countries, and constituting one of the largest independent school movements internationally. So Waldorf is one of the biggest alternative schools out there. It emphasizes the role of imagination and learning, striving to integrate holistically the intellectual, practical, and artistic development of pupils. Steiner's division of child development into three major stages is reflected in the school's approach to early childhood education, which focuses on practical, hands-on activity and creative play, to elementary education, which focuses on developing artistic expression and social capacities, and to secondary education, which focuses on developing critical reasoning and empathetic undertaking. The overarching goal is to develop free, morally responsible, and integrated individuals equipped with a high degree of social competence. Qualitative assessments of student work are integrated into the daily life of the classroom, schooling, neighbor-to-neighbor schooling. I think essentially when I was in teacher training school, the idea was so easy. It was so easy. As we're all going to be teachers and we're all adults. They're still talking down to us like dumb kindergartners. All right, and there's only 5 of us in the class and still lecturing down to us, not respecting us, still oppressing us, robbing us of our humanity, adults. And they went along with it because, you know, that's the rational thing to do. Go along with their bullshit, get your degree, and then just pass on the oppression to the next generation. Somebody's got to say stop, and that's what I'm doing. Fuck this bullshit. Oppression kills the soul. So, and education is a lifelong process. So it's been so easy for teachers to educate each other, right? I'm learning the social studies. When I was in teacher training school, I didn't learn anything about social studies. The only thing I knew about social studies was from my undergraduate work and my own curiosity. But they didn't, you know, help me work on my craft. Instead, the only thing that they taught me was essentially how classroom management. Tell them to shut up. Tell them to sit down. Exactly for sure what all you guys are doing, just getting drunk and acting a fool or whatever it is. I don't know what your thing is, you know, going to restaurants and just, you know, eating a whole bunch of crap, looking, you know, laughing at whatever shows or I don't know. Are y'all being real? You're actually talking to each other? Are y'all discussing physics and mathematics and politics? Are you talking about the real things? So that's the radical schooling. If the teachers actually respected education, they would learn from each other. If they respected each other, they would learn from each other. If we all respect each other, we would learn from each other. I guarantee you everybody's got something to teach. Everybody's got something to bring to the table. And, you know, we all could just go to the neighbor's house instead of just being like, blah, 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 I saw this thing and I saw that. So, you know, 65% don't vote. To be minimally invasive, let's see. I'm not for sure, you know, 65% of people that didn't vote, these 60 schools, what the hell are you doing? They don't even vote. Why are they fighting so hard to vote? They're fighting. Powerful forms of education is self-education. Isaac Asimov actually said that that's all there is self-education. Abraham Lincoln educated himself. He didn't go to college. Tecumseh educated himself. Khan's Academy. There is a school online. If you want to learn calculus, there's 10 lessons. Sit down, learn lessons. You want to learn German? You want to speak a new language? There's actually how to do videos, you know, like vocational stuff. You want to know how to change a carburetor? There's a video online for you to do that. And there's physics. There's a lot of Harvard school, Yale schools, Yale study. We can learn whatever the fuck we want anytime we want to. Instead of teaching each other what to learn and what curriculum to learn, we can teach each other how to learn. We can learn on our own and then find out who wants, you know, who are interested in the same things we're interested in and then teach each other. Teaching is love. Teaching is love. To teach somebody something, this is what I know, and I'm going to give you all the information that I know to help you out. That's
And then, you know, in college, you can kind of forge your own a little bit. So, like, but in college, since you were studying education,
used to bring the student up to the front. They used to whip him or smack him with a ruler. They believed in violence against the child. What the hell are we doing? More violence, right? That's what this society needs. We need more violence. Might is right. Violence is correct and right. That's all corporal punishment is doing. There's actually schools in Kentucky that still hit the children. The principal said, I don't care who you are, I'm going to spank your kid. Yeah, right. If my kid, I'd beat the fuck out of you. Shut the fuck up. You ain't going to lay a fucking finger on my kid. I'm going to protect my kid. You're going to let, you know, people put their hands on your kid's butts with violence. You know, that's an erogenous zone. That's going to confuse them as they get older. So there's Buddhist education. There's homeschooling. It's fascist. Give me a break. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more. But Buddhist education is, you know, we're all just meditate, breathe. Your wants are what's getting you in trouble. You want everything. Well, just want nothing, and you'll be.
Elementary through middle school, I was in private, and then middle school and high school, I was in private or public.
Wow. Okay. Fantastic. What would you prefer?
You just disappeared.
Which one did you like? Sorry.
I like public.
Why?
because I didn't like the rich kids.
You heard of Montessori schools?
I've heard of them, but I don't know what it means.
What are freedom schools?
Other than yours?
Yeah, other than mine.
Well, in Columbus, the freedom schools are more of a summer camp.
The historical one that I based my YouTube channel off of was during the 60s, during the South, they educated black folks. They had to hurry up and put all these makeshift sort of schools, summer schools, to teach black folks how to vote, how to get civics, get their civics on, and how to understand the political process, and, you know, registered. Really, it was a big, massive voter registration effort. But I thought that the civics focus was, like, really important. It's like, okay, black folks don't understand, like, you know, they haven't been allowed to vote, they haven't been a part of the system, so let's try to, you know, fast forward and get them involved. So let's see, Summerhill. You heard of Summerhill or Sudbury?
No.
Schooling is also an alternative that I agree with, because if I send my kid to this bullying school and the teachers are yelling and talking crazy, and then the other students, because my kid's going to have an independent mind and independent spirit, and, you know, I'll if they want to do it, you know, I'll let them do what they want, but I'll give them the option to homeschool, and we'll just play ball with the school board, and we'll have a portfolio, and, you know, I can teach them everything. That's what a great relationship. Actually teach your kids everything that you know. God, parents would have to learn to become parents if the schools were to shut down. So homeschooling, I think, is just always should be an option. It just should be. And learn by play, right? We can learn by playing too. So essentially, that life is supposed to be fun. And so why would we not want to, you know, go to, what, Dave and Buster's and play a trivia game? And we're learning, right? You're reinforcing that knowledge. Even if you knew it before, you know, you reinforce it. So you learn more and you get smarter with others.
I mean, I think that so used to the idea of a curriculum.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like specific
requirements,
stuff that is going to be covered and all that. So, like, I don't know, you know.
What curriculum? What do you learn right now? What curriculum is dictated to you right now?
None. And, you know, if I want to read an article, I read an article. If I don't, I fucking lay in bed and listen to NPR. Holy shit.
Are you all right?
Well, I just found some really old cheese.
Oh, man. Are you going to eat it or throw it away?
I don't know, man. I'm going to have to.
Sometimes I feel like maybe I'm not just, you know, standing up. I'm in a nation of fascists. And because I'm not fascist, I don't say, you go do this, you go do that. I'm nice all, then that means, no, I don't want to, you know, control. Maybe I do need to work on sometimes you got to be an asshole, sometimes you got to, but I don't like to be told what to do. So when I tell somebody what to do, they really have to push me to do it. They have to be like, you know, robbing me or something, you know, get away from me, do this or do that. Now I'm commanding orders to you because fuck you, you're about ready to hurt me. So, you know, and then if you don't do as I command, so that would be when orders are necessary, when I want to smash someone's humanity, but I'm not just going to smash people's humanity, my friends and my children. Why would I do that? So when schools don't have an overall philosophy, it's fascism. It's fascism. It's going to dwell in the fascist. Every person will be a fascist, man or woman. It's also 80% women in the school system, which just for the boys are more aggressive, and I think that, you know, women might just hate that. They might just be like, what the hell is wrong with these boys? There's something, you know, there's something. There's no democracy. There's no sense of democracy. You got hour-to-hour bell systems. There's one dictator, 30 order takers. There's a strict hierarchical system. The last thing I want to mention is the educational theorist B.F. Skinner. His famous quote was, let's see what man can make out of man. He was a behavioralist, so he basically said your faults didn't matter. The teacher's job was to control your behavior because eventually the faults would catch up. Does that sound like your public education? Fascist tyranny seems to be humankind's default. If you don't have a sense of democracy and respecting of other people's freedom, then you're probably a fascist, tyrannical piece of shit. I mean, what's your favorite educational theorist? Go ahead, put it, mark it in the comments. But if you say none or my mom, that means only your mom. I mean, that's good. At least you're talking to somebody. But then you're your own inner fascist, right? You're listening to your own inner fascist. That's all you're listening to. And all the world must bow down and abide by your bullshit. So there's an overall, if you don't have it, now all 20 of these alternative schooling methods are infinitely better than the fascist Prussian industrial totalitarian public education in American schools today. All of them. All of them, some, on a continuum, some of them are for complete freedom and democracy. The other ones give some freedom and some democracy. They're all better. In terms of the average public school, infinitely better. So the here in the local school system who are opposed to education. They can't learn from anybody. They're the tyrant, right? So someone else is talking to them. These oppressors are unapologetic oppressors. They don't give a shit. They actually brag about being bitches and assholes. We're a bitch to your kids. We're assholes to your kids. I've heard about them tripping your kids. They're proud of smashing those young souls. They love smashing the humanity of children. Instead of empowering them, they're smashing the life out of them. Morality versus obedience. Morality is you do what's right regardless of what you're told. Obedience is it doesn't matter if it's right or wrong. Shut the hell up and go kill those Jews. That's how Nazi Germany got away with their bullshit. And that's also the rise of fascism that we're seeing today. There's Nazis in South Carolina. What the hell? We fought against the damn Nazis. Confederacy, that's treason. That's the only crime actually defined in the U.S. Constitution. You want to fight against the United States government? And we think that's acceptable. They're teaching just obedience, blind obedience. That's all they're teaching. And that's why our children isn't just a bunch of ignoramuses, but they're a bunch of savages. They've never learned how to actually, be themselves, be independent, and to, build those connections. Of course they want to talk to each other. It's, we're social beings. And to stop a relationship from happening, two people are about to become friends now because you want to talk about whatever the hell you want to talk about. Maybe those two could become friends, and if there is some problems in the home, they could give each other ideas, and they could look out for each other. I mean, wouldn't that be good? You're actually building their network so they have a greater circle of friends to help them out. In fact, these oppressors in the local school system, they blame the children. They say, well, they got it, they're rowdy, you got it, y'all, you got to treat them real bad. As if the child's humanness, as if their natural inclination to fight against your fucking oppression, which is abusive and it destroys their humanity. You're the oppressor. You're the bad guy. No. I see American public schools. If you think differently, please let me know, because I've heard other people, and it's, I've been to several different schools around Louisville and northern Kentucky, and, I've talked to people all across the country. But B.F. Skinner's famous quote is, let's see what man can make out of man. Let's oppress the hell out of each other, our children, and push them to be all that they could be as we see them. We're going to fashion and make sure they do as we approve of them to do. So B.F. Skinner is a behavioralist. He thinks that you control the behavior, the thoughts will come afterwards. The exact opposite of everything I've been saying, but that's the industrial Prussian totalitarian model that I'm talking about. Doug Lemove teaches 100% compliance. Not even Adolf Hitler got 100% compliance. But remember Stephen Miller? He said Donald will not be questioned. Miriam questioned Moses, and then God gave her leprosy. So one dictator, 30 order takers, hour-to-hour bell systems, no democracy or sense of democracy. What the hell? Mention is Jean-Jacques Rousseau. So Jean-Jacques Rousseau says that we're born good and society corrupts us. We're born good. And it's the bullshit that everybody else puts upon us that ruins us. Now, I don't, essentially the opposite is what we believe. We're all born evil. That's why you got to oppress and make them as you see. I mean, it's almost like capitalism and communism. We're not even talking about the alternative education visions or the economic visions. You're not even allowed to think any different. That's not education. We all think different about everything. In fact, as soon as somebody says something in your mind, you're disagreeing with it. Even if I'm like, murder is wrong, automatically you want to say, well, not in self-defense, right? Well, okay, duh, but I meant cold-blooded. Well, no reason to be so damn disagreeable. So B.F. Skinner, essentially, like Pavlov, You know, just get them in a routine operant conditioning, ring a bell, and they'll start salivating. Punishments and rewards to
and also the one who, I will admit that the one who I learned the most from in elementary school was like that. But they had such a mastery over the material that, like, I probably remember more from that teacher than I do from most of high school, even though it was longer ago and whatnot. Yeah.
So any last,
I mean,
yeah.
I think there's both of them.
Yeah, okay, cool. I appreciate the validation. Is there any last things you want to say about the education? Do you think we should have more freedom schools and more Sudbury model schools, or you're out, you really don't care about any of this, and this is just all annoying to you?
I think I would like the freedom schools. I would have to learn more about the Sudbury to see, like, what people are getting out of it and, like, what's available for folks to, you know what I mean? Like, I don't understand the concept well enough to say much about it.
Do you, in general, believe in freedom and democracy?
Yes.
It's fascist. Give me a break. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more. But Buddhist education is, you know, we're all just meditate, breathe. Your wants are what's getting you in trouble. You want everything. Well, just want nothing, and you'll be.
I barely made it.
Why? Why were you?
I failed at the high school and then had to go to night school to catch back up and graduate.
Why did you?
I got the annotated version.
Yeah, why did you sort of flounder in high school?
Drugs.
Just all kinds of drugs. Because I feel like school is boring, and it's not exciting, and it's not fun, and they drill you over and over again, and it's oppressive, and it's dictator, and then, like, I feel like when I'm sitting in class, I want to sort of interact with the other students and make connections and sort of, you know, expand my networking you know, web. But the dictator, everybody wants to either, you know, most of them wants to kiss the dictator's ass. And so if you say, I don't agree with what the dictator says, they'll all look at you like you're crazy. And then the other ones, I mean, I haven't found too many people. I feel like there's house slaves and then there's field slaves. So I don't feel comfortable when someone's standing over me, lording over me, telling me do this, do that, micromanaging the shit out of me. When I went to teacher training school in Spalding, essentially they pulled back the curtain and they showed me Oz. I always felt like they were micromanaging me, even in college, and that's precisely what they're doing. One class was how to teach like a champion, and you get 100% compliance. If somebody raises their hand halfway, you don't respond to them. In fact, you chastise them and you say raise your hand all the way up, and so you have to be like a total Nazi, 100% compliance. Even August Landmesser had his arms crossed, so even August Landmesser and even Hitler didn't get 100% compliance, but they're getting 100% compliance in these schools. So the way I define public education is fascist, Prussian, industrial, 100% compliant, totalitarian.
That the dictatorial thing probably continued more for you than it did for me, because I was in philosophy and it was more like I felt like the teacher worked for me when I was in school. That's not always the way they treated me, but the only way that I could get what I needed out of it was to ask the questions that I wanted to ask and to say the things that I wanted to say. And if they would have tried to treat me the way that, like, they treat the stories that you told me about the way people acted in your school, I probably would have ended up in the same situation as you did.
Well, I mean, I feel what you're saying. It's not, I mean, I think I made it too simple. For 2 years, I did everything that they wanted, and then I also went to undergraduate. So I would agree that both undergraduate, college, and graduate school had a higher degree of freedom than high school and public education. But even though it was a higher degree of freedom, there still wasn't a sense of democracy. There still wasn't a sense of freedom. Sudbury model schools, everybody was free, and everybody knew that everybody was free. And like your anarchist things and your rapping things. So right now, today, you don't sit in a class and have some asshole just, lecture down to you like you're the dumbest fucker in the world. You choose to be in these things, and they choose to talk, and then I feel like it's more of there's more respect towards each other. There's more equality, and there's more respect, and there's also your dignity is held intact. You agree? You disagree?
Agree.
Okay. The high school. Does that sound like the public education that you went through? Oh, everything I just said. The fascist.
Say the B.F. Skinner shit again.
Okay, B.F. Skinner is known as a behavioralist. So instead of encouraging people and piquing their curiosity and then, trying to inspire people to learn the stuff, he's basically a Nazi and he's a behavioralist. So he just says control the student's behavior and then their faults will catch up. So just get them in a routine, tell them what to do, tell them how to think, and then eventually they'll think how you want them to think.
Okay, so in my public education in high school, I would say that there were definitely some teachers that acted like that, especially like in mathematics, science, but my humanities teachers were generally a lot more open.
How many good teachers would you say that you had in high school?
2 or 3.
So, because even the nicer ones, I think that I probably had like 2 or 3 also. But even like for the nice ones, I still feel like there was never, because the other teachers or the whole school, there was no sense of democracy. So it was totally shut up, sit down, I'm the boss, you're nobody.
I had one teacher specifically that definitely was not like that.
Did you have any that was kind of like that?
Oh yeah, for sure.
I have one teacher that was kind of like that. I feel like because of my home life was oppressive too, that maybe the only way that they could have reached me at that point would have been to be a bigger Nazi than the fascism that I was used to. But as an adult, I just kind of resent all of it because I don't feel like I gained much in the end. Like you said, I just mentioned something about the civics. And you're like, oh my God, that was forever ago. Well, did we learn or did we not learn? And education is a lifelong process. So I feel like when I'm an adult, I was in graduate school, so I'm paying all this money. I wanted the education to count. So I was actually participating in discussions, and I wanted to sort of, actually have a conversation for education to be real. And I feel like that's the reason why I eventually got kicked out.
Yeah.
We're all adults there, and we're all going to be teachers, so how easy would it be for us to teach each other? We would be learning how to teach, we would be learning how to respect each other, and we would actually be saying that, this crap that we're doing, actually, there's something to it. But instead of doing that, I think that's such a simplistic, obvious idea, but instead of doing that, we were still being treated like kindergartners. All right, everybody line up, all right, everybody, and even in classes of like 5 individuals. They were still a dictator. They still lectured the whole time, and we could only participate in the small little spots that they sort of allowed us to participate, and only if we regurgitate the bullshit that they were spewing. out who wants, who are interested in the same things we're interested in, and then teach each other. Teaching is love. Teaching is love. To teach somebody something, this is what I know, and I'm going to give you all the information that I know to help you out. That's love. It's fascist. Give me a break. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more. But Buddhist education is, we're all just meditate, breathe. Your wants are what's getting you in trouble. You want everything. Well, just want nothing, and you'll be.
Holy shit.
Are you all right?
Well, I just found some really old cheese.
Oh, man. Are you going to eat it or throw it away?
I don't know, man. I'm going to have to